Um, Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the warm applause. I know I stand before you and I'm between you and your lunch, so please don't be hangry at me. I think you have been, as Prof. Dato' Norma was saying, you have been well fed, hopefully in these past few days. But I think it's important to have a session just to wrap up and reflect a bit on what we discussed in the past 2 days, because when we undertake this practice, the main reason is for discussion, is for intellectual exchange, and I hope we can have a few takeaways as we move forward. Now, this year's practice, it has been held in a challenging environment. I think we are all aware of that. When we started, as I mentioned in my first session, when we started conceptualizing praxis, I think many will be optimistic that by now, as vaccination rates have increased, as economies have opened up, that we would be on a relatively smooth path to recovery. However, the challenging environment persists, and there are many difficult choices for every nation, including Malaysia, to make to ensure that we balance the short-term needs with the long-term goals. But now we certainly know that what is constant is change. The COVID-19 pandemic and recent geopolitical challenges highlight that while some things remain the same, there are some issues that have either changed, evolved, or accelerated during the pandemic. As a trading nation, as an open economy, achieving economic resilience will require us to adapt to this uncertain global landscape. For example, we have seen acceleration in climate action, including the urgency in transition of energy systems towards renewable and low-carbon technologies. We have also seen how inclusive development, or rather the lack of it, impacted the most vulnerable communities and segments of society disproportionately in the face of crises. The pandemic has exacerbated issues such as those faced by women having to choose between a career and childcare. More broadly, we have seen how some of the most vulnerable communities fall between the cracks. Nonetheless, the crisis does offer opportunities. It offers us a real-world evidence to further understand and crystallize some of the challenges that we have faced, and this has been clear, especially in the last session we heard just now. The funds committed to our recovery can be aligned to desired outcomes and pathways. So if done properly, this can be a watershed moment for Malaysia. It could be a short circuit in achieving a better Malaysia. It is with this thinking that we at ISIS Malaysia has focused our work on the strategic areas that will impact the nation's future. This includes ensuring economic resilience, including, we have not touched on this, but food and energy security, climate change, women's economic empowerment, the digital economy, and social protection. Praxis 2022 conference was conceptualized along these lines and towards building discourse on how to build a better Malaysia. In particular, we wanted to bridge the conversation across the nexus between theory and practice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I won't be able to do justice on the rich discussions that were held the past 2 days, but allow me to provide some brief recap of the sessions that we had. The first session focused on the macroeconomic landscape of 2023, asking the question of whether the outlook is risky or rosy. With the geopolitical challenges faced and recessions in major economies projected, virtually all the panelists concurred that the outlook was risky and uncertain. This will be impacted by the continued geopolitical tensions, including the Ukraine war, development and policies on the energy crisis, tighter global financial conditions, and even renewed COVID-19 outbreaks. Fiscal space is also limited, which will undermine efforts to aid the underserved and underrepresented. Moving forward, the panelists remain hopeful that Malaysia's status as a net exporter of commodities will really assist in bolstering the economy, especially in the short term. In the long term, however, we should remain vigilant, as the outlook can be described as cautiously optimistic at best, with further uncertainties to be expected. Session 2 discussed the human cost of the climate crisis, a relevant topic in our time as we grapple with the effects of flooding in Malaysia. The panelists raised social cohesion as an important factor in building climate resilience. They also stressed that there is no one-size approach, but it is specific to the needs of specific and various communities on the ground. Without a bottom-up approach and stronger collaboration across different stakeholders, vulnerable communities will continue to be put at risk with graver consequences down the line. Ultimately, climate change is a systemic issue which requires systemic intervention, including relooking and rethinking our dominant economic model and framing of the issue altogether. In the third session, we looked at supporting women's economic empowerment with childcare. It questioned if the recovery from the pandemic has truly been inclusive given the lack of investment in care undermining women's participation in the labour force. Across the board, the panelists concurred that childcare was not simply a women's issue, but a family issue, one that affects everyone in society. What is needed is enhanced policy attention, government coordination, and above all, improvements in affordability, accessibility, and quality of childcare for every Malaysian. With the upcoming budget, the panelists echoed hopes for greater resources for early childhood care and education for both public and private systems. Session 4 saw a discussion on the creative economy, particularly on spurring the industry towards greater growth. As it stands, the panelists suggest that the industry remains somewhat untracked, with the outputs of the creative economy not fully captured under the Department of Statistics, Malaysia. At the same time, panelists also agreed that the supply side is healthy, with various grants, funds, and incentives being made available by the government, yet domestic demand hasn't fully picked up yet. Moving forward, the panelists concurred that a true north for the creative economy needs to be identified, and this will anchor the policy framework, incentive structure, and initiatives pursued over the coming years. The penultimate session, session 5 this morning, focused on building a safer digital future. The panelists had begun by acknowledging that the digitalization process is proceeding smoothly, with more and more SMEs adopting digital practices. However, the legal and policy frameworks regulating data need to be updated. For example, current policy gaps mean that only certain types of data transactions are covered under the ambit of PDPA, and this may lead to suboptimal results. In moving forward, the panelists suggest a mix of policy updates while reminding users to be more mindful of the types of data shared online. For myself, I am a member of more than 100 WhatsApp groups, so I think I will have to delete them. Last but certainly not least, session 6 aptly closed with a discussion on social resilience. Panelists had agreed on how the pandemic laid bare the strengths and weaknesses of our existing social protection mechanisms, providing us with a crucial opportunity for review. On the positive side, panelists noted how there's now an increased awareness on the need for social protection mechanisms, with assistance being able to be delivered faster to the most vulnerable within our society. Yet, panelists had also acknowledged challenges, especially in the coverage of assistance, especially due to the inconsistencies in data, for example, with the informal sector. Moving forward, what is needed is to prime these mechanisms during times of surpluses to ensure that sufficient capital is available during times of crisis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, each of these sessions highlighted some of the key trends and, more importantly, what we need to do to address these strategic challenges. It laid out some of the pathways that we can consider towards crafting a better Malaysia, and if you allow me, I will synthesize some of this. Broadly, in an age of crisis, it highlighted the need for Malaysia to better anticipate the multitude of risks we face, whether that can be geopolitical, economic, environmental, or so on. This requires having good foresight and tools to scan the horizon and develop pathways to address multiple scenarios of the future. Governance in the 21st century has to be agile to address these uncertainties. To address climate change that came up in various of the sessions, the global transition in energy systems towards strengthening climate action offers Malaysia an opportunity to craft our own unique pathway for a low carbon and resilient future. While strategies on reducing emissions should continue, there is an urgent need for expanding the discourse towards addressing climate action strategically. This includes areas such as trade, economy, and security. Furthermore, we have to carefully craft the process of the transition and ensure that it is just and inclusive. The acceleration of the digital economy also offers a huge potential for Malaysia, as we were reminded that almost everything now is connected to the digital realm. If implemented strategically, it can have a multiplier effect on the economy and society, such as those from emerging sectors, and we have heard, for example, yesterday from the creative economy. However, for Malaysia to be on a path of Industry 4.0, or now even people are talking about Society 5.0, there's a need to enhance human capital to match these demands. Furthermore, as we heard earlier today, with more digitization, we need to focus more on cybersecurity measures as well. A digital transformation requires not only growing the technical side of digital economy, but also mainstreaming and socializing the importance of data protection in the context of both personal use and for business use, and in the context of global digital trade. Towards inclusive development, the need for agility and the need to address an uncertain future landscape extends to social protection. There's a need for livelihoods to be protected to cope with the times of crisis, as well as in facing major transitions of our time, such as those related to sustainability and the digital transformation. As we are focused on recovery, this provides an opportunity of shifting social protection to focus on long-term interventions rather than short-term social assistance, as mentioned in the session just now. Also, there's a real need to enhance investments in the care economy. These actions will not only enhance inclusivity, but will also increase productivity through economic empowerment, as well as build resilience at the household level. Ensuring decent work, which was highlighted just now, should also be given more prominence, as it can address both competitiveness through compliance with standards, as well as ensure social protection at the same time. These pathways, if planned and initiated properly, can contribute towards achieving a better Malaysia that is more inclusive, resilient, prosperous, and therefore more sustainable. While they require much further thought and discussion, I do believe Praxis 2022 has contributed to the discourse as a way forward by providing the space for interaction and exchange. But the conversation, of course, does not end here. In many of the sessions, there was a sense that we need to continue this conversation. There was also a sense that Malaysia is at an important juncture and that there is a need, as the Honourable Minister, Dato' Sri Mustafa Muhammad highlighted himself, for creativity and courage. I would like to take this opportunity to invite any partners, friends or colleagues to continue the journey with ISIS Malaysia and to continue to share ideas with us and even find concrete ways how we can collaborate with the aim of finding creative and bold ways to build a better Malaysia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before I end, on behalf of ISIS Malaysia, I would like to take this opportunity to show my gratitude to our partners, Conrad Adenauer Stiftung Malaysia, Employees Provident Fund, EPF, and also Astro Awane for making Praxis 2022 possible. I would like to once again express my appreciation to all the brilliant panelists for their input and for the thought-provoking sessions we had in the last 2 days. I also would like to thank my colleagues at ISIS who have worked tirelessly to organize this event and allowing us all a space for exchanging our ideas. And last but not least, thank you to all of you for your participation in Praxis 2022 and contributing to discussions in building a better Malaysia. On that note, thank you for your kind attention and I declare Praxis 2022 closed. Terima kasih. Enjoy your lunch.